As you know, we use this platform to share stories of resilience. And today I have a very special guest. Welcome again to the Sally Allen podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm your host, Sally Allen. And today I have an incredible guest for you, Dr. Marianne Martin. And she is such an incredible individual. Her tenacity, her drive, and her courage is incredible. So I can't wait to share that with you. I know I said incredible 3 times, but that's how incredible it is. So with that, let me properly introduce her. She is a retired endocrinologist, and right now what she does is she's an executive. Did I get executive? Holistic
Health
coach. When I look at stuff, I don't do well.
I'm going to give you a tongue twister next time.
We don't try to be perfect on this podcast.
I'm going to give you 4 H's next time.
Executive health holistic coach. All right, said it backward. But she's just focused on helping people, and she actually retired from her doctor endocrinologist career to help people in a different way. So I'm really excited for her to share that with you. So welcome to the Sally Allen podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Yes. And before we were just laughing about how we met. You share that story.
Well, okay. First of all, you haven't seen the shoes that Sally's wearing today, because if you were asked to go to a self-defense class, most people would wear gym clothes, tennis shoes. Not Sally. Nope. She's wearing a skirt and high heel shoes. They are platforms like they are today, so it wasn't like stilettos, like she was going to kick some serious ass. But this girl, like as soon as we started the training part for the self-defense, she took her shoes off. She's like, I don't care if I'm in a skirt. Let's get it. That's the kind of person Sally is.
Yeah, I truly did not get the memo that it was a self-defense class.
Doesn't matter.
I walked in. I pull up my earrings. I'm like, let's go. And it was so much fun. But that's where we met and we connected. We had coffee afterwards. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to have you on my podcast to share who you are and what you're doing.
Well, I think what happened at coffee is we just resonated with each other on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Just contributing to society, but something that fuels our passion. And, for those of you who are faith-based, something that resonates with your spirituality as well. I mean, like everything we were talking about with each other, we're like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. So, yes, we were meant to meet.
I know, and it's so great when you meet somebody in your soul. We connected on a soul level. It was so much more than a surface level. And that's what I look for when I go to these wonderful events. And we do want to give, oh my gosh,
Shout out to Mary Grace and Social Register Network. Yep.
Yes, we want to give a shout out to her because I've met some wonderful people through Social Register. So with that, we want to get into your story. Why did you become an executive health coach?
Well, so that question stems from actually when I was 7 years old. And I was watching my entire family go into the healthcare field. So my dad was a surgeon. Both of my older brothers are doctors. My mom was a pharmacist. And I said, "Niet, I am not doing this. This is so boring. Someone has to be the black sheep."
Right.
So ever since a very, very young age, I've always been interested in reading, creative writing. English was my favorite subject. But actually what my favorite thing to do was actually interview people. And that's because I grew up watching the evening news with my parents, back when the evening news was actually respectable.
Right.
Okay. So I grew up with Walter Cronkite, Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer, and then all of a sudden there's Connie Chung. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's a role model for me. So what I loved is that they got into deep conversations with other people, found out their story, and just told it objectively. Like, I'm going to give you, this time to share what's meaningful to you about
Yeah.
whatever subject it is. And I was fascinated and I loved talking to people. So, all my life, my dad kept whispering in my ear, you should go to medical school. And I said, no, 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 I'm going to do communications, which is what I did at UCLA. I majored in communications, had a journalism, degree. As soon as I arrived on campus, I wrote for the paper. I started, really going full in, doing internships at CNN, et cetera. So I was about to graduate in 3 years with a journalism degree. And at that time, I applied for a job at CNN. And I don't know how you were brought up, but my background, being the youngest and only girl in a very strict Asian family,
Yes.
do you know what that adds up to? Lots of book smart and zero street
Street smart.
smarts. Okay. Okay. I needed that self-defense class more than anybody. I can tell you that.
Wait, but I was just going to ask you, I'm glad you brought that up. It's almost like you went inside my head because that's the question that's popping up in my head. You didn't go to medical school and your dad was okay with that?
Oh, no. No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. I mean, I'm sure he had some kind of a voodoo doll, you're not doing communications. No, no, no. No, I think, for parents, it's what he knew,
Right. Absolutely.
right? And
Yes.
and we'll get to this, but like parenting wise, that's a big trap. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to only share with you what I know
Right.
instead of letting your kids find their own journey.
Right.
No matter
right.
what field it is, even if it's completely foreign to you, right? But traditional, family, you were either going to be a doctor or you were going to be a doctor.
Oh.
So anyway, what ended up happening was I think divine intervention stepped in because the place that they offered me a job was not LA, it was Atlanta. So there's only 3 places. The third choice would be New York.
Right.
So when you have an inner voice, you can call it your instinct, you can call it your conscience, whatever you want to call it. I truly feel it was my guardian angel who told me at the tender age of 21, with the upbringing that I had, if I went all the way to Atlanta all by myself, trouble was going to happen that I wouldn't be able to handle. And so I asked them to give me the weekend to think about the job offer. And I went home to seek the wise counsel of my parents.
Yeah.
And so, of course, what did my father say? Well, it sounds like you should go to medical school. And I said, Dad, you're kicking me when I'm down.
Everything's back to medical school.
Exactly. But then he said, hear me out. If you go to medical school, you don't like it, well, then you could do medical journalism. I had to give in
Yeah.
because it made so much sense. And, you've seen Dr. Gupta and all these other people who've transitioned from traditional medicine to being a journalist, focusing on health topics. So I was like, okay, I think I could do that. But I'm sure you've done incredibly hard things in your life. And I think when you listen to your instinct, it doesn't mean that it's going to tell you to go the easy route.
Right.
Right? So here I am doing all the classes that I hate. Biology, chemistry, physics. Oh my gosh, it was torture the first 2 years. It really was. By year 3, you finally get to talk to a real patient. And that's when my journalism background finally came into value.
Right.
So I'm talking to these people and I'm like, I'm just finding out their story. And then I'm presenting it to my attending physician. And then I'm coming up with, what should I do to help this person?
Right.
I was like, this kind of makes sense. Yeah. And so that was the only reason I enjoyed being a physician, was because of hearing people's stories.
Did you tell your dad he was right?
Well,
Okay.
of course I had to admit that. And you know what? 90% of the time parents do end up being right. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So, the first few years, I think in any career, you will always be very wide-eyed, naive, and want to save the world.
Right.
Until you see what the obstacles are. And the obstacles were, number one, people sometimes couldn't afford their medication. Number two, their insurance wouldn't cover the medication, so it was incredibly expensive, even if they wanted to be on it. And then number three, what came up more and more and more was people were having side effects to the medication. So probably 10 years into practicing, I started seeing that trend where people were literally saying, I don't feel good on all of these medications that I'm on. Is there anything that you can help me with to try to get off these medications naturally? Now, Sally, in all of the training that I had, which was 11 years,
Yeah.
from medical school to residency to fellowship, there was not a single day where we talked about diet and exercise.
Yes, I heard that from so many other doctors.
It is a
Yeah.
huge miss.
Yeah.
And so when that first person asked, I had no idea.
Wow.
When the second person I asked, I said, I need to find out.
Right.
So I started doing the research myself. And about that time also coincided when I found out my mom, all four of her siblings, and my maternal grandmother all developed type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
And I said, hell no, am I going to be an
You did-
endocrinologist
yes.
and get diabetes myself and not help my family?
Yeah.
Right. So I was on a mission because even though my mom was a pharmacist, the funny thing was she hated taking medication because she knew all the side effects, right?
Yeah.
So I said, here's my opportunity to really do something meaningful for myself and to change the family history of the people that I care about.
Right.
So I dug in, I researched everything that was natural and holistic. There were some supplements that could help, but really 80% of our overall health is nutrition. So that's what I dialed in for myself. And when I proved to myself that it could be done, oh, and I didn't even share with you, the day that I found out the last sibling, the youngest sibling, developed type 2 diabetes, I was at the office and I grabbed my nurse and I said, prick my finger right now. I want to know what my risk is. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the hemoglobin A1C is the 3-month average of your sugars. And that tells the risk of whether you have prediabetes or diabetes.
Right.
Okay, an A1C of 5.7 is the start of prediabetes. You know what mine was? 5.6.
Oh.
Okay, I don't look like the typical person who should develop type 2 diabetes,
Right.
But more and more we're seeing people who don't fit the stereotypical type 2 diabetic because of the way our lifestyle is, where we're on the go, fast food, no exercise, working all the time, sleeping late. I mean, it's a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah. And is it the cortisol level that goes up and causes that, or are there more factors to it?
That's one of the factors,
Yeah.
for sure. Yes, because cortisol does spike up your sugar levels. But I was so scared. And as you know, in a physician office, which should be the healthiest place,
Yes.
no. All the
Wow.
drug reps are bringing in Starbucks macchiatos, Dunkin' Donuts, pizza. I mean, it was awful.
Wow.
And I was eating all of it because I
Yeah.
was too busy to do things like meal prep or, things like that. I was just too busy.
But you looked fit.
I looked from the outside
Wow.
like I was fit because at the time I was trying to outrun my fork on the treadmill,
Right.
even though I hated the treadmill, but
Yeah.
I had to do it, right? But you can't. You can't ever outrun your fork. It will
Wow.
catch up to you.
I love that term. You can't outrun your fork.
Yeah.
You'll catch.
For sure. So once I proved to myself that I could change my destiny
Yeah.
with diabetes purely with lifestyle changes, then I was on a mission to help all of my patients because those are the people I was seeing. I was seeing people with diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, obesity, right? These are the people who needed the help the most. So after I was the first guinea pig, then I started helping the other people in my office. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I think I could do this as a business. Like, I really enjoy
Yeah.
doing this.
But let's go back before you go further. Do you think you get in trouble if they found out that you weren't given the medication, but you were using other sources to help people?
My office?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked that
Yeah.
because I will share with you that at that time, I didn't know a single other holistic practitioner. who was an endocrinologist.
Yeah.
There were some that were internists who were naturopaths, DOs, and they were already way ahead of where I was. But as far as endocrinologists that I, met with at dinner programs, not a single person was talking about lifestyle.
Wow.
And so I did feel like I had to do this on my own.
Right.
And
And kind of covertly do it also.
I did. And that's why all of the patients that I initially coached were after office hours. I couldn't do it during, the time that I was in the office.
Right.
But that caught up to me as well, because here I am working full time with 2 kids that were at elementary school and trying to spend quality time with my husband. And I've got a full-time job, but then when I come home, I'm on the phone with the patients that I'm coaching.
Wow.
And it started really building very, very quickly, because so many people were like, oh, can I refer you my sister who lives in New York? Could you help her? Right? And because I did everything either through Zoom or phone, I was like, absolutely. So the business was growing incredibly, especially over COVID. I
Right.
thought the business was going to slow down over COVID, but no, because all the gyms were closed. People were door dashing and Netflixing, right? And I mean, 20,
Yeah.
30 pounds was normal,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they needed me even more. And then when the pandemic was over and people could go out again, I thought, okay, well, everyone's just going to have fun. No one's really going to need me anymore. No, then they partied so
That's so much.
excessively. Then they're like, I got to dial it back again. Could you help me get back on track?
Yeah.
So what I kind of proved to myself is, no matter the situation, people always are seeking better health,
yeah.
right? They want to feel good. They want to look good. They want to perform at their best. And that's really where my true passion is now.
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit talking about your mindset when you had to go to the doctor's office. You had to go in the office and basically prescribe medication to people because that's tradition. And then on the outside, you're going here, and that's in conflict with your. It seems like you were building some core ethics, and that was in conflict with it.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. How were you able to mitigate those two?
Well, if I even go back for a little bit, even before I started really diving into holistic health, I was a victim, but I accepted that, of the pharmaceutical companies, because what would happen is your ego gets stroked so much, and they say, oh, we would love for you to be our expert speaker at a dinner program to educate other healthcare providers on how to use this particular medication.
Right.
What is it's under the surface is you only get to be an expert speaker if you're one of the top prescribers of that medication, because their thought is, well, the more that you use the medication, the more clinical experience that you will have, right? But it's also that even though if you think, no, I am going to be so ethical about this and I'm only going to prescribe this medication if I think it's the right one for the patient,
Right.
you could say that. But subconsciously, are you going to do
yeah.
more, of this medication because it's top of your mind, right? The drug reps are in there all the time. You see the samples right there at the front of, the sample closet. I mean, subconsciously, you are going to prescribe that medication the most. Okay.
Wow.
So I was a speaker for multiple medications, and I thought I'm doing a service
Right.
by educating other people. No, I was being bought by the pharmaceutical. I was.
Wow.
I was absolutely being bought by the pharmaceutical companies.
And how many other doctors are like that? I mean, their intentions aren't bad or anything. They're just like
we all
you.
fall into that
fall
trap.
into the trap.
We do.
But it's also easier, right? I'm sure you have an allotted amount of time you spend with the patient.
Yes.
Because there are appointments.
Yes.
And there's only so much you can do.
Very true. Yeah. So my conversations changed dramatically after I started seeing even the first few people transform their lives so dramatically, just with lifestyle change.
Right.
So from then on, so here's the funny part. Okay, you and I both like high-heeled shoes.
Yes.
Because we're vertically challenged.
You're not. I am. But
But anyway, I love wearing high-heeled shoes to work because
Yeah.
I got to sit down most of the day. So I didn't have to worry about standing up in high-heeled shoes. But we had this long hallway, this floor, right? And my patients always knew when they come in to see me, they've already had their blood work. The nurse is initially going to do their weight and their blood pressure. And they know before I even walk in if I'm going to be happy or we're going to have a chat. So
Oh.
they would always say, "Oh my gosh, I hear Dr. Martin's heel of doom is coming down the hallway. I have not been good."
Yeah.
But so anyway, the conversation changed so that if you came to see me, I would say, "Sally, we just went over your blood work and, your cholesterol, your sugars, those are both up. I know your weight's up a little bit. So here's what we can do. Door number one is I can add more medication or increase a current dose of medication that you're on. We can get things under control.
Uh-huh.
Would you like to hear about door number two?" Everybody says, "Well, yeah."
Yeah.
Door number two is if you're open to adopting some new lifestyle habits,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're open to letting me guide you, not only am I not going to add more medication, I'm going to help you come off the current medications that you're on and live your best holistic life. But you make the decision. I can't make it for you.
Right.
So that was the conversation I had with every single person
That's
from
awesome.
then on.
That's awesome. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What questions, and I know you cover your correct me if I'm wrong, the demographic you cover is premenopausal and menopausal women because we struggle, with weight. But what questions would you tell them to ask their doctors when they're in there regarding like their weight or not being able to lose weight and their hormones and all of that? What are some good questions to ask?
Well, first of all, let's just start with the proper blood work panel
Yes.
that needs to be evaluated.
Yeah.
Because many times it's a superficial blood panel that doesn't tell the complete story.
Well, when you looked at my blood
Yeah.
panel, we can talk about that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So the most common error is that when somebody is evaluated for thyroid hormones, let's say,
Right.
all they're getting is a TSH. Well, that's not the complete panel. It doesn't tell the whole picture. So you really want to make sure that your provider is ordering a TSH and at least a free T4. Okay.
I have no idea what that language is, but it sounds so sexy. So keep going.
Okay. But here's the other miss is that when people are being evaluated for diabetes or prediabetes,
Right.
again, they're only having a fasting glucose, which is your sugar at the minute that they draw your blood. That's all it says, right? So if you had a really stressful morning
Right.
driving to the lab draw, your cortisol is going to be high. And
Oh,
your glucose
interesting.
might
Yes.
be high because of that, okay?
Wow.
Or you said probably wouldn't be a good idea if I got my blood work done after a 2-week cruise, but this is when I'm scheduled. And so you've just gone and, partied and eaten like crazy. And then
Right.
the next day you get your blood work done. Of course it's going to be worse, right? So the glucose is a literal snapshot, a Polaroid snapshot of that moment in time. That's all it says, okay? What you really want to ask for is at least a hemoglobin A1C, which is that 3-month average of your sugars.
Okay.
But the key thing is the insulin. A fasting insulin is the earliest marker that there could be trouble. And so if I were to wait until your fasting glucose was officially 100, which is when prediabetes starts,
Right.
you will have had prediabetes for at least 1 to 2 years before being diagnosed. Because
What?
I could have diagnosed it with an insulin or an
Yeah.
A1C way earlier.
Wow. Well, I can't wait for you to read my blood work. So you got me tested on all the right things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is very eye-opening and interesting because I've been having having my blood work done. I'm getting thyroid done. I'm getting they're checking for my cholesterol and they're checking this. And one time they're like, your cholesterol is really high. And the nurse is telling, not the nurse, the assistant is telling me this, and doctor's recommending you go on medication. I was like, I don't think so. I eat a lot of avocados and stuff like that. So which one is high when you eat the good fats?
Well, so here's the It's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
So your LDL, okay,
Right.
which is the bad, I like to call it the lousy cholesterol.
LDL, lousy
LDL,
cholesterol.
lousy
Got
cholesterol.
it. Yes.
Okay. It can be hereditary. But I
Right.
don't want people to use that always as an excuse either,
Absolutely.
right? Because just
Absolutely.
because your parents had it doesn't mean you have to have it. That's just how you all grew up eating.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, now if it's extremely high, that's when it can be hereditary. So if your cholesterol is just a little bit high, like normal is under 200, and you come
Right.
in and you're like, oh, my cholesterol is 220, but it's because of my parents. I'm like, no, it's not. Like if it was over 300, yes, that's
Right,
probably because of your parents. But no, this is something that we can change, right?
Yeah.
So when you have too many healthy fats, your LDL can go up, but your healthy HDL, right? That's the other measurement. So
Okay.
the lousy LDL, the healthy HDL. You want your
Right.
HDL as high as possible. You want your LDL as low as
That's possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Your HDL is always going to be high if you're eating healthy.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but people like to just look at the raw numbers. I like to look at the whole person. And what I mean by
Right.
that is if your cholesterol is high and you have diabetes and you
And you-
have high
right.
blood pressure, you
Right.
are a ticking time bomb.
Right. Right.
Okay. But if you only have high cholesterol and you exercise and you're active and you're living a pretty good lifestyle, I'm going to give you a couple of months to just tweak some things in your nutrition
Yeah.
and let's see what we can do. Like we don't have to panic right away unless you were to tell me everyone in my family had a heart attack before the age of 55. Well, then we're going to have a conversation about
Right,
that,
right,
right?
yeah.
But that's rarely the case.
Right. Right. Wow. This is all so interesting. So tell me, what do you're really fit? So what is your routine and your workout and your eating pattern and all of that?
Okay, ever since menopause, it has dramatically changed.
Right. Which is the opposite for most people.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
This is what I want to shout from the rooftops is
Yes.
when women go through perimenopause and menopause,
Yes.
you have to change and adjust a few things, starting from nutrition to exercise to maybe some supplements, so
Right.
we have to really look at the whole picture. So when I was before perimenopause, this is when I could get away with eating a lot of carbs,
Right.
a lot of sweets, and then running on the treadmill, and it would all just magically disappear.
You outrun the fork.
I did, but not on the inside, not on my blood work.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There
From
you
the
go. Yeah,
outside,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was really like within a couple of years of being in perimenopause, I 100% remember waking up in the morning, looking down at my belly, and said, what the heck is this muffin top? Where did this come from? I literally just woke up and it's just why is it here?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't do anything different. I was still eating the same. I was still exercising the same, but my hormones changed.
That's key though. You were still eating the same. You didn't change.
I didn't change.
Your hormones changed.
My hormones changed.
Okay.
Now, here's the problem
Yeah.
with when your estrogen levels change during perimenopause.
Right.
Normally, estrogen is the traffic cop, and it tells fat to go to all different areas of your body. It distributes it very evenly
Right.
before menopause. Okay. While we're going through this change of your estrogen going down, there's less estrogen to be the traffic cop. And guess what happens? The default is that fat now goes in the midsection.
Oh, that is so
That's
interesting.
why.
That's why. That's why. Nobody explained it that way.
That's why it's called the meno belly.
Yeah. The traffic cop. That's
Yes,
the part.
the traffic cop is gone. So now we have to be the traffic cop. We have to be our own traffic cop.
Yes. So then what do you do?
Okay. So I've always been a grazer.
Right.
That's the good thing. The bad thing was I didn't always graze on the best thing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So when you're going through this perimenopausal change, the number one priority is not calories. That's the number one thing that gets every woman into trouble is they're like, oh, well, let me just restrict my calories a little bit more. Let me dial it back.
Yes.
That's not going to work.
I did that.
I know.
Did that.
We all do. right?
Yeah.
If we skip this meal, if we skip breakfast, if we skip, right? That's going to solve the problem. No, that's going to slow down your metabolism.
Mm.
That's the only thing that does.
Wow.
So instead of focusing on calories and counting that and just being burdened by that, what you should count instead is how many grams of protein you're consuming. Because in perimenopause and menopause, we are not only losing estrogen, we're losing our muscle mass at
Oh,
a very
yeah.
dramatic
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you remember when we grew up, our like fashion role models, for me at least, Christy Turlington and Naomi Campbell and
Yeah.
Linda
Yeah.
Evangelista. Okay. These were skinny
Is it-
supermodels,
Supermodel. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
super skinny. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any role models that were, cut, toned, other than Linda Hamilton in,
Yeah.
Terminator, which I did not want to look like because she scared me more than Terminator. But anyway, I wasn't raised to
Right.
be a strong, muscular
Right.
woman, right? And the only strong, muscular women I saw were bodybuilders.
Yeah.
So I didn't do any weight training. I did a ton of cardio
Oh.
when I was in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And that was fine for that age.
Right.
But
right.
during perimenopause, that doesn't do anything anymore. That's not what is going to burn the fat. Cardio is not going to burn the fat anymore once you're in perimenopause.
Oh, okay.
What is going to burn the fat, number one,
Uh-huh.
consuming the right amount of protein
Mm-hmm.
so that when you do the resistance training and the weight training, now that protein can be converted into muscle.
Wow.
So I've never lifted, and okay, you're going to laugh when I tell you this. Up until 3 years ago, I never lifted anything more than a 5-pound dumbbell.
Oh, is that right? Oh my gosh.
And I thought I was badass. I'm like, yeah.
Come here, my
It was so sad.
Oh my god.
Because
yeah.
I was scared of getting muscles.
Because that's what they tell you. You bulk up as women if you go, and that is so not true.
I know.
Because I haven't bulked up yet. I'm still waiting for that muscle.
Well, once you get the right amount of protein,
Yeah.
then you will. Okay. So that was the number one change was I started doing some weights, like not crazy. So now I do 7.5, 10 pound, so
Yeah.
I'm not trying to injure myself,
Right.
but I do want to get strong.
Yeah.
And I do want to build muscle.
Right,
Because
right.
that is the number one sign of longevity right now. The currency of longevity right now is your muscle mass.
Wow. Well, it protects you. I know a lot of old citizens, they break their hips as soon as they fall down.
Correct.
Because they don't have muscles, right?
Correct.
So hip and shoulders.
But also
And
core.
core, yes.
Yeah. Balance. All of that
Right.
is
Yeah.
key. Because once you have your first fall, your incidence of the second fall is 50 to 60% higher than someone who's never fallen.
Why is that?
Well, because you're already in this weakened state.
Right.
You just fell. Now you might be nervous to exercise, which is the worst mentality.
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
actually do more exercise and get stronger, So that's the problem is that weaker people get more weak, stronger people get more strong.
Stronger. Yeah.
So that's the issue.
Wow. That's interesting. So how many times a day how many times a week you work out?
So I like to keep it fun. And that's what a lot of my clients ask me is, what should I do? Like, what do you
Right,
do?
right.
And what I say is what I do may not be what you enjoy doing.
Right.
So what I do love to do, okay, so this is just me. I don't love doing cardio.
Right.
I'm just smarter about doing it now. So I do the high interval training if I do cardio. So if I do a treadmill workout, it's a concentrated 7-minute workout. And you're like, what can you do in 7 minutes? I'm going to share with you what I do in 7 minutes. Okay. So the first minute is like a warm up, 3.0, like just a very easy walking pace.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second minute, I crank it up to 7.5.
Oh, that's high. Okay.
Okay. Third minute, go back down to 3.0.
Right.
Fourth minute, now I go up a little bit to 8.0.
Right.
The next minute, back down to 3.0. The final minute, 8.5. And then the last minute is the cool down. So in 7 minutes, I have gotten my heart rate up more than if I just stayed on the treadmill at a 4.5 for 20 minutes.
And it burns calories all day because it's working. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it builds your
Yes.
metabolism. Yeah, yeah.
But
I've heard that. Yeah,
I have really switched to very focused, concentrated, quick workouts
right,
because a lot of people that I work, with as clients, they don't have time to go to the gym for an hour and a half.
right,
I
right.
don't have time to go to the gym for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
So I will do like a concentrated 10-minute ab workout or a 15-minute arm workout. And then, so I'm only like exercising less than 30 minutes a day, but I focus
wow.
on different body parts
Yeah,
every day.
yeah. I do 1 hour.
You're intense, girl. You could probably teach the self-defense class.
But
But
I like
you
doing
love
it.
doing it.
I do
Yeah,
actually. I do. It's my quiet time. It's my time with me, and I feel proud that I do that for myself. That's part of my self care.
absolutely. No, but
Yeah,
I'll spend 2 hours playing tennis. I just
yeah,
did that this morning,
yeah, yeah.
So the things that I love that are active, I'll
Right.
spend 2 or 3 hours doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
But for me, like after 30 minutes in the gym, I'm gone. I'm done.
You don't. You just you don't like it. You're not there. You're not someone who's going to be on the treadmill for 30 minutes like I
Oh
do.
gosh, no. Yeah.
Yeah. I I don't know why I love it so much.
But I love that you love
Yes.
it. And so for people who love the gym, awesome. For the
Yeah.
clients that I work with who don't love the gym, I'm going to give them the tools to do quick, focused workouts.
So let's talk about that for a minute because I think sometimes people think like this one size fits all, and that's what I notice about you is that you're unique in the sense that you really dig into let me find out what works for you. It's not one size fit all.
This is
Yeah.
part of my journalism background, right?
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
find out what your story is. What have you struggled with in the past? Let's come up with a solution together. And let's
Right.
tweak things along the way because I may have a plan for you where we have to adjust it,
Right.
as it goes. And that's totally fine. Like it should be a journey of self-discovery.
Right. I also notice like the questions that you ask, like you're tailoring, like, let me not make this a burden for you.
Yes.
Let me tailor it to what you're already doing. Let's incorporate
Absolutely.
it. And I absolutely love that. Yeah, because I've gone to other programs where it's just one size fit all. Just do this and
Mhm.
this and this. And it hasn't worked for me.
But it's not going to work the same for everybody. That's the
Right.
problem. Yeah.
Right. Our metabolisms are different, our bodies are different, we process differently.
Yes.
So you really have to work with what works for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm excited on this journey I'm on with you.
I
'Cause
am
in a
too.
month, I'm going to be that.
Or sooner.
Or sooner. Probably sooner. Yes, probably sooner. So, what do you want to leave with our audience today? I know we talk about a lot of things, but do you have some closing thoughts for our audience today?
Yes. So my closing thought is this. For people who are intermittent fasters, I really have a message, which is it is incredibly difficult to do intermittent fasting correctly and sustainably.
Interesting.
Most people who do intermittent fasting are eating whatever they want in an 8-hour feeding window,
Yeah.
and they're not getting all the proper nutrition during that time. So if I could give my best advice, it would be on the nutrition part to focus on nutrient dense, small portions throughout the day
Mm-hmm.
because that's what speeds up your metabolism the fastest and balances out your hormones, not just for insulin and cortisol, but every hormone is better balanced with small, healthy portions every couple of hours.
Right.
That's number one. Number two is so you're going to be shocked when I tell you this, Sally. Do you know what the number one thing is to help with menopause?
Like in terms of food or?
So the risks of menopause, the things that really, really affect our quality of life
All right.
is going to be women who have menopause-induced depression, who have menopause-induced decreased bone density, which leads to falls and osteoporosis.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is when you're looking at hot flashes and all of that, all three of those things, hot flashes, your risk for depression and your risk for osteoporosis, they're all related to exercise.
Wow.
Because exercise gives you endorphins
Yes.
to battle with the depression.
Yeah.
Exercise resistance training is going to protect your bones.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are really exercising and getting your heart rate up, it actually is balancing the blood flow better so that you're going to probably have less hot flashes. So exercise is so amazing
Yeah.
for going through all of those menopause risks and symptoms.
Wow. So those are your two. You have something else?
It's just really, but I think it's really, but it has to start with nutrition,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
80% of our overall health is nutrition. So even if you spend 3 hours at the gym
Right.
and you don't have the right nutrition, you're still not going to get the results that you want.
Yeah.
And just like you said, you're going to be served best by having a tailored program for you.
Right. Right.
And it starts by looking at your labs, your hormones, and then what has worked for you in the past, what has been a stumbling block, and then designing a program that's going to use all of your current strengths,
Right.
right? And then easily take out the bad habits.
Mm. Well, this was so informative, so educational. Thank you so much. But the one thing I really taking from this is that what worked when you were younger, when you were in your 20s, and way back when, doesn't work now. So if you're struggling with premenopausal symptoms or even menopausal symptoms, I would recommend seeing a certified nutritionist. Marianne is an excellent one. I am working with her, and I am pretty excited to see where this
You're
is
kicking
going.
butt, girl.
And with that, friends, it's a wrap. Until next time.